Ko te mihi tuatahi, ki te atua, nāna nei nā mea katoa, ko te mihi tuarua, ki te whare hira, e tūnei, tēnā koe, hei mihi tēnei ki ngā mate katoa, e ngā mate, hari, moi mai. Kia tātou katoa, te hunga ora, e tūnei, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Nō reira, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, kua tai mai nei, mō tēnei hui. Nau mai, haere mai, e tīmata. Okay, I don't have any apologies. Has no one's heard from Councillor Dunn? No? Okay. We'll just, here she comes now. No leave of absence, no acknowledgement of tributes, and we have no public input and petitions. Go to confirmation of the non-confidential minutes, pages 4 to 9. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor McLean. Matter arising? Yep.
I just wanted to discuss the recommendation that was for Peel Street toilet options, and my recollection of the meeting was that the motion I moved was to retain up to 300k capital against the Peel Street toilet and seek additional funding to complete that project if possible, with the idea that if we couldn't achieve the entirety of the project, the budget was still there to potentially put against that building if someone, say, GHL, were to find an alternative use for it. It wasn't to retain it in a overall business district toilets budget, because we didn't have any information to show that the business district toilets required any more funding. So that was my recollection of it, and I know that Councillor Cranston had understood that differently and interpreted it as that it was going to go into a central business toilets, central business district's toilets budget. But so I wanted to just discuss a little bit whether the rest of how the rest of the room thought that was recorded, because it makes a small difference. But I want it to be accurate, and I want it to be reflective of what people voted on, essentially.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, you've recorded it. We did have a different view of how that came about, so it's probably best that it does come back to the committee for discussion. But just by way of advice, as a recommendation that has been passed there, it would need to come back to the next meeting with a wording. It's not a wording change we can make at this meeting, but yeah, we'll just go through the discussion of people's interpretation of that.
As the seconder, I do recall it being in the same vein as how Councillor Dowsing has described it, that it was that we were retaining, as I understood it, the recommendation was to retain the 300k against that specific building, regardless of whether it was going to be a toilet in the future or anything like that. Well, the focus was toilet, but if that wasn't feasible, then okay, what else could be used inside this budget and to focus on this the specific building, because that was what the public had asked us to do, and that's why we had allocated that entire 400k there. Happy to spend the 100k for the 24-hour facility. Still wanted to keep that other 300k assigned to that building. Focus on toilet first. If that doesn't happen, then progress conversations, knowing that we have that 300k in that budget. As a seconder, that's how I interpreted that recommendation as well.
Okay, Councillor Foster.
Yeah, along similar lines, I at no point had the expectation that the 300k was going to be put into improving another central business district toilet. My understanding was that the money was going to be left in that realm around Peel Street, and yeah, it wasn't going to be spent elsewhere. So that was certainly my understanding as well. Okay. Yeah, from my point of view, like initially in the recommendation, the 300k was solely attached to the Bright Street toilet. And when I've gone back over my sort of discussion on it, I was thinking that the Bright Street toilet
wasn't never going to need that sort of level of contribution. So I was hoping that the contribution could be more general than just being specifically the Bright Street toilet. But the original recommendation, that whole 300k was attached to the Bright Street toilet. So my discussion was getting it away from just being solely for that function. But Councillor Dowsing was the mover and Councillor Wharehinga was the seconder. So I'm under their guidance as how they want the recommendation to be read. Councillor Bidette? Yeah.
My fellow colleagues in the committee, I want a direct question to the staff. Are they actively pursuing funding to complete the upgrade of the Hill Street toilets to complement the 300,000?
Yeah, let's keep the conversation to the minutes at the moment, the recommendation on that, because it'll get a bit out of control there. Yeah.
In that case, it seems like we need to bring it back to the next meeting so that we can change that wording, because as I moved it and as Josh seconded it, and we're in agreement that it was to be retained for Peel Street toilets, I think that the minutes, that the recommendation should reflect that.
So it just probably needs some guidance from possibly Heather. Would we need to decide on the wording here now, or? All right, yeah. Yeah. And the point well made by Heather to me before was it's a really good indication that we should restate recommendations as they're being put to a motion. So my bad there. All right. Any other matters arising? All those in favour? Moved by Councillor Bidette, seconded by Councillor McLean. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Action sheet, anything from that? With the action sheet, I was going to get a closer look on the township plans, but I see it's coming to the next council meeting. But I'd still like it to come in front of the next community development meeting with what comes out of the next council meeting, as to just getting a better clarity about where we are and where we're going with the township plans. So I'd like that put on the action sheet, please.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very good idea, because it's some years since we first determined township plans, and we know that there are a number of them that need an update.
Yeah. And possibly the thing that has given me that is when we come to Parks and Reserves later, some of the township plans, the Parks and Reserve stuff's done under the township plan and some's not. So I think I'm seeking some clarity around that. Councillor Foster?
Just on the action sheet, I just want to get an update on the big replicas. It says on here about an update today, and there's nothing on the agenda to indicate that there is an update going on. So if you get an update of where we're at, I'm going to keep on pushing this here, the meeting.
Yep. Garrett and I are scheduled for a meeting. With Martin Tibble and the Rex Bryant on Friday. And we're also scheduled with a meeting with funding possibility on Monday or Tuesday next week. So in the next 4 or 5 days, I'll be able to give you a bit more clarity around where we're going with that. Anything further to add to that, Garrett? No, thank you. All right, that's the action sheet. So we'll move on to, we've got the governance plan there. On that. Okay, page 14, which is the, I've got the environmental policy meeting up. No wonder I can't follow what's going on. Just a moment. What page are we on? Okay. 16, yes. Right, just get the right meeting. All right, so the draft proposed smoke-free outdoor access policy. Councillor Foster, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to move this. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. A lot of other areas have endorsed this outdoor areas policy, smoke-free outdoors areas policy. It's a great way for the future if we're going to try and get to 2025 being smoke-free, which is looking like a bit of a tall ask at this stage. but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And I think the majority of people would really applaud our stance on this. You know, when you read through the report, $77.5 million every year in this region is spent on tobacco. I read that and I just fell over backwards. I thought, my goodness, that is just unbelievably, you know, if you could put that money to better use for health and them, we would be
77 million up in smoke.
$77.5 million literally up in smoke. You did right. So that is, you know, you read that and you think, oh my goodness, no wonder we've got some health problems in this region. But anyway, I'm happy to move this report, and it was a good reading actually.
Thank you. Move Councillor Foster. Councillor Dowsing.
I absolutely agree with Councillor Foster that this is the right direction, and that $77 million actually doesn't need to go towards health, because the improvements are by not spending it on the tobacco. That 77 million can go to other wellbeing. But I would actually like to make an amendment if Councillor Foster would accept, which is to go to community consultation with the extended smoke-free policy and find out if the community are willing for a greater smoke-free zone, because at the moment accepting this policy doesn't take it to community consultation, but the two further options did. So I'd like to approve what we have now, but also take it to community consultation to see if there is a greater desire for greater outcomes.
As a separate consultation, or?
To consult on smoke-free in general. It doesn't need to be in relation to policy, just to get a steer from our community as to whether they would prefer a wider smoke-free application or a policy.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I was concerned about financial implications, but Kate has just whispered in here that it shouldn't be too onerous. Yeah. So let's get some wording for that, Councillor Dowsing. Approves the draft free smoke, approves to take the draft smoke-free outdoor areas policy to the public for consultation, something along those lines. Second. Is that sufficient to cover you? Yep. You get that? Yep. Okay, Councillor Bidette? Just well, Councillor Ball's
You've
not
been here
here.
as long as me. When Nona was here, we
Not quite as
moved
long
that
as
this be put in place.
Yeah.
If you recall, I'm just wondering what we're doing, we're replicating it or giving ourselves a wind-up.
I think a lot of the objection in the past has been it's never going to be enforceable, you know. But when I read the document, I think there's real value in the fact that it's actually making it not the norm. I think that's the value, rather than getting out there with a big stick. Yeah. All right. If there's nothing further,
You can go on and take it further to option 2.
No, just to consult the community on whether they would prefer it to be expanded.
I'll get Jill to read out just how it's changed the second recommendation.
Could we just ask staff what the implications of that are?
I just indicated.
Just to clarify, from what I'm understanding is, what the wording as it stands is we're approving to consult on the draft policy as it's written as your attachment. So if there's an expectation to go wider with the options, then we'd actually have to change the policy as it in its draft form. So from page 23 to reflect Councillor Dowsing's comments.
So I'll make a suggestion then on the wording, which is notes the contents of this report, approves the draft smoke-free outdoor areas policy as written, and then a number 3, add next opportunity to consult community, introduces the extended smoke-free policy for discussion. Option 2.
Okay, next. Oh, sorry, I didn't indicate at the start that Andrew's away at the moment, so Kate, you would have noticed Kate is sitting there. Draft cemeteries plan for consultation.
Yes,
Moved by councillor Dunn, second by councillor Finn. Councillor Biddy.
yes, Mr. Chairman, this is timely for me. About 3 weeks or a month ago, one of our community had passed, and getting some action in terms of the Monday, I'm talking the Monday, in terms of a burial site in Tapuia, which is a council ground. We were told, the family were told, no, if the CEO had not intervened, it wouldn't have happened. So in having read this and reread it to see that everything's clear, I just want to know who determines that? Because I didn't go back to the CEO. I deliberately did not go back to Nadine on this one. I thought Mere Pohatu handled it very well. But that's something that needs to be clarified in terms of our wider district.
What was the question, please?
Well, I weren't going to go up there and dig a hole and have the burial take place on the Monday. That wasn't going to happen. I can vouch for that because, never mind, I'm not going to get into the details of the family. But had the CEO not waved the big stick and got some action, it wouldn't have happened.
Okay, when I look at the, what page number, it's 44, the user charges and that, I see that we're a lot lighter than most other councils, but we also have problems with the amount of the UHEC paying for the operational expenses and that. I just wondered if that's a reflection of where we are with the user pays component of the thing, with us being so much lighter than all other councils. Perhaps other councils are putting an element of ongoing maintenance and upgrade and everything onto their initial charges, and whether we need to look at that. Yeah, because we're way lighter than other councils.
Yeah, through the chair, that's exactly what we have identified, is that probably there's a lot of deferred maintenance in the cemetery space. We haven't actually increased the budget over the last little while, and we haven't increased the fees significantly. And so, yeah, there's a large list of deferred maintenance that needs to happen particularly across all of the cemeteries, and that has been noticed by the community in terms of the quality of these spaces.
So is there an intention to look at the fees and charges?
That if I was to introduce this paper, I would have said that's the key thing actually that you would get out of this, is that yes, we recognise that our community is lower socioeconomic community. However, the fees are so much less than what are in other regions. The thing is that essentially when you purchase a plot and when you are buried in a cemetery, you have a right in perpetuity almost. And so the maintenance and ongoing costs of that is forever. So we're mowing the ground, mowing the lawns forever. So we need to really factor in the true costs of the cemetery services into those user pays. So we will be definitely reviewing the fees and charges for before the next LTP starts. It's a really important part. If we're going to deliver what the community expects of us in these spaces, then we need to look at it.
Councillor Dowsing?
Thank you. To continue on from the discussion around the funding of these activities, the considerations on page 31 highlight that there is insufficient budget to implement the full cemeteries plan, and further resourcing will need to be secured through the 2021 to 2031 long-term plan. some of these actions around heritage trails, et cetera, et cetera. The problem we have at the moment is that that's when we hit our peak debt cap level. So there's no more, it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to find additional funds when we're already tapping on our debt cap at that time. So actually implementation of this strategy is the problem, regardless of the strategy and its merit. If we don't actually find a way to implement it, it's just paper. So as you mentioned, the intergenerational payments on cemeteries is difficult as they grow. You don't backdate the charges. So yeah, so we need to look at how overall how this is funded, and we do have a workshop on our rating workshop coming up in finance and audit, which might identify this, but it certainly should be something on the board that we determine how some of these larger plans are going to be funded into the future, or whether they're actually appropriate for our, whether the plans are actually appropriate for our finances, and whether the plans need to be readdressed. But I see we've already spent 1,200 hours on this, so it's probably not something you want to readdress.
Just in response to that, through the chair, my understanding is there is going to be quite a wholesale review of the revenue and financing policy that staff will be working through with the councillors, so that all of that stuff will be picked up. And you're exactly right that it needs to be taken in the context of all of the other activities of council. So an integrated view of this, so that you can actually prioritise what are the most important things and where you want to spend the rates dollars on. I do want to also just mention as well, there's not a massive amount of spend identified in this plan relative to the other community facilities plans. We have kept it to an actual bare minimum. And the things that are identified in here would give us the biggest bang for our buck. And yeah.
I guess on that point, when we talk about bang for your buck and the things identified, I question around, for example, eco-burials and some other introduction of new services in there where I have no information about the uptake of those things around the country, where they are implemented, so without indication of desire for those services, I wonder at whether the cost is validated to actually implement them. But with no information, I'll let it go to the community, and we'll see if they have desire through response.
Yes, I had a note on natural burials and eco burials as well, because rather than get a site, a lot of those burials are quite specific to why they want a natural or eco burial. It might be that they want it under a specific tree or on a hilltop overlooking something, and it might not necessarily they want it all to happen in a site. So there does need to be a bit of work done to be see how the demand does lie. Welcome, Councillor Seymour.
Thank you. I just think that it is important for us to get the fact that we do pay UAGC a percentage, which is to help get the price at a reasonable price for our community. On page 31, it talks about community engagement, and I just think we need to make sure that we do get good information out to our community so that everyone is aware, of what the issues are. But a particular note on the bottom of 47, and we talk about the increased demand for self-organised funerals, and that's all it says here. I'm not talking about eco burials or the others, but I just wonder whether that isn't something we could have something on the website about, because it talks about what's expected of both councillor and the customer around the process of making arrangements. So, a piece of information that's constantly, permanently available on the website would help to alleviate that, I would suggest. Thank you.
Just in response to that, would you like me to add an action to the cemeteries plan about around information provision?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that would be particularly helpful, because and if it's permanently available to people, then it's absolutely there, and reflecting information we've heard in the last week. I hope we do, and I'm going back to the item 16 on 31, you know, not just one media release, maybe we can keep that on our website for a bit and let people know that we really are talking about it rather than only Facebook. And I see you've got option to request a Huey. There's not that many changes, as you've alluded to, but it still is important for our townships to understand what we're talking about. And I know particularly that the cemetery in Tolaga Bay is the second highest used cemetery in our region. Thank you.
Thanks for that. One of the recommendations was to classify cemetery as parks and reserves land. I wasn't sure whether that was cemetery or cemeteries. It says cemetery. And why do we want to do that? Page 55.
So through the chair, that is the, that section of the plan is identifying the specific
Oh,
challenges
yeah.
of individual cemeteries.
Yeah.
So there are a number of them that do not have, that are not currently classified, and that raises a whole bunch of issues around the management for operationally. And so it's really is trying to give the operational staff the ability to manage without too much constraint.
So Tarahira is classified as cemetery.
Not at the moment.
So
It's a technical thing under the Act. Yeah, so it's the same as Churchill Park is not classified. Classification brings with it a number of the ability for council to actually put in place management plans and then deliver to them. If they're not classified, what can happen is that you need to go back through the Act, and sometimes you may need to actually get ministerial approval to take some actions and the like. So it adds a layer of bureaucracy that whereas classification would help us to streamline processes a little bit.
all right, nothing further. Recommendation page way back here somewhere. 28. Oh, way back 28. Moved by councillor Dunn and seconded by councillor Burdett. That the noting the content report and approve the release of the draft cemeteries plan for public consultation from 11th October to 2nd October 2018. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Next one is you found the page yet? Oh, I wonder. Miles away. All right, we've got the Makaraka Cemetery, the uplifting of the headstones update. Is Martin here?
I'd like to move this report, and if
I think,
there's
were you moving, councillor Finn?
option 3.
No, the second one is an attachment, so it's a previous report. Councillor Finn. Sorry. Oh, did you want to, you had your hand up, did you want to move? Right, moved by councillor Finn, seconded by councillor Pari.
I'll get to that. I'd like to move option 2. We've met with both councillor Cranston and myself met with Friends of Makaraka, and we had Garrett there as well. So we've talked through this quite a bit. First of all, I'd just like to say uplifting of the headstones. Thank you, staff and everything, for getting it that far. That's awesome. Council caused this in the past by putting these headstones into the trenches, burying them, and in my mind, that was actually was a ridiculous move and quite disrespectful. We've got 1 year to 18 months to actually do something about that. I think that's correct. So we're sort of time pressured with doing something about this. I know it's not budgeted for or in the long-term plan. We haven't put any money towards this, but I do think that we need to see this project through for the families, for the descendants. It's our story, it's our history, it's our future. We do need to see this through. So I'm I move that we do option 2 to support the Friends of Makaraka to actually see this project through to the end by providing advice around process and help them with funding. I don't feel that we can afford it at this stage. So yeah, I move option 2.
All right. If I can just add a little bit more context to that. The headstones come out of the ground probably in better condition than we were expecting. In fact, they're not too bad, but most of them do require some sort of renovation, but that's up to a standard that the families might want and the families will undertake. All that Councillor Fenn and myself are supporting is that the actual relocating them back onto the site. It's nothing to do with tidying the headstones themselves up or doing the lettering or anything like that, which the families are happy to take responsibility for themselves. So the indication is that we would like to see it costed to get them back onto their locations as close to as we can identify. And it may not be that we need to come up with the funding through council itself, but we do need to be in a position where we would support funding applications to other bodies and that, so that we are behind it, but we're not necessarily saying that we're going to fund that through the council pot at this stage, but we do want to support getting funds to get it done. Just while I've got the speaker though, but in background information, page 73, I'm not very happy with number 5. Previously, the groups had considered a number of options for the headstones after they were uplifted. This included an option for the construction of a memorial wall that would be partially funded by council, and 20k was allocated as part of the 2012-13 annual plan. However, due to timeframes, this funding was not utilised and has lapsed. Now, I don't think that's very fair on the people that we agreed to allocate that funding from. The lapse was due to timelines that it's taken us to get this far down the road. So to actually just state that, oh, it's lapsed too bad, I think we need to take some responsibility there with that fund. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. I do support this paper, but I think we should be going further, in my opinion. I think we should be looking at option 3 because of what you had stated. We had allocated 20k in our budget to this project. And yes, we don't have it in our long-term plan, and I wish that Mr. White was here so I could kind of get a feel as to how we could possibly move their internal budgets in order to be able to make room for what will probably be max in terms of a third contribution of 20k-ish, which was what we had indicated previously in regards to our financial support of this. I do agree with what Councillor Fenn had said. We do need to make sure this was our balls up, the council's balls up, not the people seated around here, but we inherit the issues of what has previously gone on. I think option 3 is a better middle ground because it's not us taking control of everything. The Friends have done so much work. It would be, I think it'll be great to ensure that the Friends of Makaraka are still leading this forward, but we're supporting in regards to all of the things that Councillor Fenn had said, but also in regards to that 1/3 of funding to make the funding applications be, I guess, more attractive to external funders. That's where I sit. And my only, like I said, I wish Mr. White was here so we could talk about the shifting around of internal budgets to be able to make room for that possible 20k. So yeah, I won't be seconding option 2, but if that fails, I'm very supportive of option 3, and I wanted to get a sense around the table of what our preferred option was before actually I put anything forward, which is why I was putting my hand up kind of first.
I mean, Garrett can answer some of the questions, but just on that, essentially the 20,000 and the third contribution are possibly about the same quantum, because the pricing we've got for the relocation is 60,
max 60k.
67 sort of.
Exactly.
So we're kind of in the same place with both those options.
Yeah. No, option 2 has no financial attachment to it. Option 3 does.
Yeah, but I'm suggesting that the 20,000 that has lapsed hasn't lapsed. Yeah, but that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, the 20,000 absolutely has lapsed. We haven't put it into future budgets, so it has lapsed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is exactly as it's stated here. So the recommended option currently is to not provide any financial support, and I am against that. I believe that we should be putting 1/3 funding to this because we have previously offered financial support, and whilst we haven't done the process to keep that financial support in current budget, I think it is still fair that we pay 1/3. I'll point out to this council that this is a problem that's been going on for many, many years. And yet, just last year, this council was happy to allocate $40,000 for a project who just turned up on our door and asked for someone to captain their ship back to Gisborne, and with no financial information and no considered process through our funding avenues. So we were happy to give away $40,000 to a project last year. And now we're squabbling over, I hope we're not squabbling over $11,000 to $20,000 of funding as 1/3 of this project. Likewise, last week or the week before, we allocated $200,000 out of that didn't exist for the Gladstone Road Bridge, and that's a project that we could have found external funding to support that, but we decided to go ahead straight out of council's pocket instead of taking the time to look for external funding. This here is taking the time to look for external funding support. This here is a minor investment into something that has been going on for decades. If we don't support it, at least to the tune of 1/3, I would be really shocked at the outcome today. So Josh did move option 3, but obviously we need the other to lapse first, and I will second Josh on option 3.
Councillor Burdett, then Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Chairman. Correct me if I'm wrong. But did we not acquire funding both for out here to help the Friends of Mark Rucker, as well as the stones and the shifting of them from the Marahia Cemetery? If you recall, there was someone amongst staff tapped into a fund, whether it was lotteries, quite who it was, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling this has been going on since Bob's time. And if you go back through the archives, you'll probably find there has been money allocated and like this forgotten about. I know in the Marahia case, that was definite.
I don't know about the Marahia case. Garrett?
Through the chair, we have been working with lotteries around potential funding options for the Headstone project, but they are quite firm in that they will only fund the project for people of significant, of the regional significance. So in order to go through that process to prove, the individual's regional significance, we actually have to do quite an in-depth report. And we're looking at potentially ECT or another funder to come and support that, so we can go down that track and understand who within the cemetery are of that regional significance.
All right, Councillor Finn.
Can I just say, I'm all for getting this project completed. I'm just really, really concerned that if we, although not a big amount of money, if we keep doing these things, these little things, constantly keep doing all these little things that add up, it's going to blow out our LTP. We are supposed to get back to the basics. I know this is a community thing, but I can just see things just stretching out, and we're not going to get our basics done.
All right. So I've come around to think that there does need to be an indication of council support in the recommendation. And option 2 kind of is worded, no financial contribution required by council. So you are the mover. And Councillor Wharahinga has gone to option 3, which does indicate a financial contribution.
Yeah, so sorry. So hang on a minute.
Okay.
I'm getting confused here.
Yep.
First of all, we've got 20K that was promised way back. It's now not budgeted for.
It's now not there anymore.
Yeah, it's now not there anymore. Okay. I'm of the thinking there that, yeah, we do need to honour that. We do need to honour that. So therefore, we're talking option 3. That's not an extra 33% on anything else. No,
Just the relocation.
just the relocation. Yeah. Okay. I'll support option 3 then if we can honour that 20K.
All right.
Through the chair, can we ask the committee, I guess, for an opportunity to leave to go and actually explore those budgets with some certainty where we can actually explain what the trade-off may or may not be and return to the next committee with what?
I think I'd like to indicate that when you are doing that, I think most of the committee are a little bit brassed off that the 20K has lapsed and we'd like to see it go back in, or some amount. No, I am, and Karen is, and Josh is. Yeah. You aren't? Yeah.
No, I'm not brassed off. It's our job to get annually approve budgets move forward into the future years. So it's, I mean, it may be a lapse that it didn't appear to come back to the table, but with the timeframes of the project, it's understandable that at some stage that dropped out. I'm indicating that now we have the opportunity to honour that without going to further seeking further information. The budgets indicate that it's between 35 and 65, I think it was. That's $11,500 to $21,000. It's within that range. So I don't require any more certainty or information. Those budgets give me a good range, and I feel comfortable with the recommendation as written.
Through the chair, to clarify, my point was we need to explore the budgets with what else may be coming off. So I'm intending that Garrett would be able to come back with, I don't believe it would be a problem to find it, but I just guess we want the committee to be comfortable with what will be coming off with that trade-off. Because as you know, there's a limited budget in that space. If we go and take that, I'd like to give Garrett the opportunity to come back there, what the trade-off will be for this decision.
Yeah, Chair, is there an opportunity for grant funding for that 20K? I mean, you've gone to lotteries prior. Is that a possibility to?
Through the chair, we, like I said before, we have been working with obviously lotteries and NECT to look at the funding. Lotteries will require 1/3, so they can't fund 1/3 that they're then going to top up, and it does mean we need to get a lot. Yeah.
And there is a concern that we want to keep this timely as well, because there is a timeline around when we want to get things moving. Councillor Dunn? Sorry? Councillor McLean.
Thank you. Through the chair, I see that I go with option 3 and it's saying 1/3, but like Councillor Dowsing said, will there be a cap on this? Like a third of what? Is it going to be no more than $20,000 or $21,000? I mean, I'd like to see a cap there somewhere.
Through the chair, we've had 3 quotes come back from 3 contractors. They're ranging from the lower end, just about the 33, 37 towards the 70K. So we're confident that 1/3 won't be any more than obviously 25K and any less than 11. So we've got that buffer between the 3 contractors.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Councillor Dunn?
I will support the option 3, but personally, I believe that this is an error that council made and that council should fix it, which means that we should be paying the whole amount of money to fix this, to finally make this wrong right. So I'd be more than happy to put $35,000 against the lowest quote that came in, purely for the reasons that we created this problem in the first place, and therefore we should be fixing it. But I sense the desire around the table for option 3, and I'll support it. I do believe it is our responsibility to fix it.
Thank you. Did you have something further? No? Yeah.
I did have a question yes, through the chair. It's a little bit on the nose, but I question why staff will put 2 recommendations in front of us that are to allocate funding without having any idea of where that funding would come from. It should be something that we have the information on the table instead of having to wait for it to come back before making a decision. It becomes a waste of time discussing the paper if we were to wait for a decision on where that funding would come from. No, it's not. It's not harsh because we have 2 options on the table that require funding, and by debating one of those, staff have indicated that maybe we should wait until they come back with where that funding would come from. Now, why would we debate it if we needed to know that information? That is my question, and so I think that that should have been prepared. That's all.
There may be an answer for that, or you might not. You might want to let it lie. It's up to you.
Through the chair, actually, you're quite right. In terms of if a funding option is being put forward, then staff should have done the investigative work to identify where that budget would have come from. So apologies on that front.
All right, thanks for that. Councillor Wharehenga.
Sorry, yes, just to reiterate, and this was going to be part of what I was going to say at the start when I wanted to have first crack at it. I did find it a little bit light in regards to trying to figure out internally, not kind of externally where we'd go to, but internally what would be the trade-offs and all of those kinds of things. So, and again, it's like that hole's, I guess, made big, and we're able to kind of manage that when Mr. White is here, but without his presence, it's a bit tricky to kind of have that conversation without him.
Right, thank you. We had moved Councillor Fenn for option 3 and seconded by Councillor Wharehenga. You indicated you were happy to move to option 3, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, she indicated to me that she was had no seconder. Yeah. All right. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Next, we've got the Reynolds Hall, I think. AJD. Yep. Reynolds Hall, Memorandum of Understanding. Moved by Councillor Burdett.
These people have worked long and hard on the whole of trust. They have been to us on a number of occasions. They've worked with our staff. I hope by putting this memorandum of understanding in place, in partnership between council and the Reynolds Hall Trust, we will finally put this request to bed.
Seconded by Councillor McLean. In the background, it says that however, the trust deed requires the ownership of land and buildings to be passed to a local authority. Do we know under what circumstances that happens or could happen?
Through the chair, if you recall, back in 2016-17, they made that request. It was when they were struggling to manage the day-to-day. There was a lot of maintenance and upkeep required, and it's normally under those circumstances to which they would request the local authority to take ownership of the asset. We took a report to this very committee, and the decision was made to enter into a memorandum of understanding and provide support as well as around funding and project management. So today is basically the resolution around the memorandum of understanding.
Okay, nothing further. That's it. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Seymour. might be the ultimate in entry, but 4.1C, the parties will meet on an annual basis to discuss current needs and council's ability to contribute to those. This will depend on each year on budgets. Instead of this, I would put such contribution will depend on each year's budget, because that could read like that if we didn't have the budget, we won't even meet with them. Yeah, just a minor. Yeah. Okay, nothing further? Recommendation, page 81, notes the content of the report, approves the draft memorandum of understanding between the Reynolds Hall Trust and the Gisborne District Council for the purpose of funding application and project management support, instructs the Chief Executive to enter into the memorandum of understanding between Reynolds Hall Trust and the Gisborne District Council. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor McLean. Nothing further. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Page 92. Which is the yardstick for paycheck management measurement result.
These people have done a very good job in presenting us with this report, and it's pretty close to how things are, really.
Just wondered why our tree maintenance was so much more than everywhere else. It's an extra 51,000 per 1,000 trees, and we've got thousands and thousands of trees. So that's actually a huge budget over and above what other people pay for their tree maintenance. Our arborists extra deer or something.
Through the chair, there's multiple variables that can be attributed to that cost. It could be other councils do it in-house. They have different types of contracts that require different levels of service, and it's quite hard to determine the point of difference when you're looking at population size only. So that was the key variable that we managed our median on, was the population size, and that's how we got the 7 different councils. So our tree maintenance was obviously contracted in 2017 when we went out for our major contract procurement, and what we have now is a performance-based contract. So.
Thank you. Yep, Councillor McLean.
Thanks. Through the chair, this is an extremely good report. In fact, if that's good, it's scary. When I look at all the option ones, which is the lower end of the scale, and I think of any consequence that might come back on the council if there's any injury or serious injuries. And it really points out and put a flag up to us that we need to...
You've got ahead of yourself.
Oh, have I? Oh, what page are you on?
92.
It's the page on. Oh, yeah, sorry, okay. I'll carry on later.
Anything further on yardstick? Okay, Councillor Dowsing.
Agreed with the with other councillors. This is an excellent report. It gives us a great amount of information in just 2 pages, and because of that, it's sort of it gave us a really good scope and vision of what our planning decisions may need to be in the future. I do question that Gisborne District is on par with the median average, and we're exactly on median for all of those number 8s. Is that because of the way the report is created, or do we just happen to be the median?
Through the chair, that was quite an uncanny finding. We can only attribute it to being on the median, all those items. So it was thank you for the kind words around the report. It was a really, really good exercise to go through and understand where we stand in terms of other local councils, and it just sort of pays tribute to the work that's going on out in the field, with the new contractor recreational services and obviously staff as well. So thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point was that recreational services are obviously doing a fantastic job keeping and allows us to have a higher grade of park area than most at a really reasonable price. It does bring back into focus our community facility strategy and combining codes so that we can possibly transfer some of our more actively maintained areas into passive areas because there are savings there, but because our provider is doing it at such a great rate, it's not a huge problem. But yeah, thank you very much for the great report.
Okay, if there's nothing further, it's just a noting the content of the report. And has it been moved?
Yeah.
No, no move. Moved by councillor Burnett, seconded by councillor Dowsing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Cup of tea.
Through the chair, the process that we undertake is an annual process. So we engage an external party to carry out a district-wide audit on all of our play spaces. They are one of 3 level 3 ROSPA qualified playground inspectors. So there's only 3 in the country, and they are very good at what they do. To delve into the report a little bit, so just on the maintenance. So when we talk about maintenance, we have our parks contractors, recreational services carrying out fortnightly inspections and any reactive maintenance based on what they find. So they manage that portfolio for council. There is some issues in the coastal environment where maintenance of playgrounds is a little bit more difficult because of the conditions that they're faced. So that's when we start getting a few compliance issues around our playgrounds because of the external effects that the coastal environment plays on those assets. In terms of our proposed actions, we've got a renewal program based on our existing budget. So we have 75,000 per year to carry out our renewals program. What we are looking at doing is attempting to leverage that 75,000 for external funding and look to capture more work inside the portfolio. So our priorities this year are Te Aroha. So we've been working with the Te Aroha community quite closely on developing a play concept for their space. They're really engaged, they're really happy, and that's quite a neat project. Ruatoria as well, so supporting a part. We're also working with that community very closely on their play space. We've developed concepts and at the point of costing those concepts. And then lastly, we've also got Waikirikiri Reserve, which started last Monday. And that project has been a very, very neat project from a engagement point of view with the community to the point where that play space is going to reflect that community. So overall, our compliance in terms of our playgrounds was 84%, which is really good. And when you look at where we've come from, in a few years, we've come leaps and bounds, and that's purely because of an in-depth maintenance program, a really strong renewals program, and just good management of the playground portfolio. It's not perfect, but we are limited to what we can do by our funding. So that is our biggest issue to date. Any questions?
Thank you, councillor Burnett.
Very good report. Two issues for me. I'm pleased to hear council staff working closely with the Te Aroha Progressive Association to rectify. You've only got to look at page 114 and 15 to see how bad that playground equipment is there, and that's a result of being on the side of the sea. You told me you were addressing it. I actually was there, but I'm more concerned as to what our action plan is for the Hicks Bay requirement.
So you're talking about a Hicks Bay playground?
Yes.
So we've had so there's a parcel of land in the township that belongs to council. We've had some flood mapping done to understand what, if we get high river levels and flooding, what would happen. And we are just sort of analysing that at the moment to determine where on that space can we build it, if need be.
Can I say, it's funny, it's saying to me here, this is where tentatively council will build the new toilets. So how far down the track before a decision is made? I mean, to be fair, without hearing the moan, the Hicks Bay community has been very patient for quite some time. This has been on the council's plate for quite some time. What's your view on that? Because that particular spot was bought by Terry, he was here, and he's long gone.
So through the chair, the Hicks Bay toilet relocation project is in this financial year. So that is our aim to deliver it this year. That being said, when you look at what needs to be done in terms of that overall space, I believe a complete design will need to be done in terms of locating the toilet in a vicinity that can incorporate a play space as well. So, looking at the big picture.
Have we, through Mr. Chairman, have we, the council, no alternative property?
Through the chair, no. And conversations with landowners have also sort of not really gone too far. I don't believe anyone is interested in either leasing or selling land to council.
Community had made.
But what is the chair, is this related to this report?
Terry Blakely.
Well, it is related to this report. It's all about what's happening in the north and the playground. This is adjacent to it. It's not the committee to deal to these things, instead of being, never mind.
All right, you know that? Yeah, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, through the chair, I've pulled myself back a wee bit as far as being ahead. I think it is an exceptionally good report as I see it, and sadly, it does point out a few deficiencies. And as far as the safety angle is concerned, we have a lot of option ones, which is at the lower end of the scale. And my concern is, if there's a major accident or injury, what are the consequences now that we've been notified and we're aware of these situations?
So through the chair, immediately after an audit, we develop our maintenance program and get into it quite quickly. We know that there are a lot of issues to deal with in terms of the audit, and it's a priority for us going forward, purely because it's a high use activity, playgrounds, and obviously children are very important. So we make it a priority to deliver.
Supplementary, Mr. Chair. I was down at the Botanical Gardens playground just yesterday, and I got a bit scared. There's a big climbing platform that goes, I don't know how many metres in the air, but I would be frightened to climb it. And I just wondered if someone, it was amazing how many young kids were climbing this, and if there was a fall, there appears to be no safety net to stop them hitting the ground. And it is quite, you know what I'm talking about?
Through the chair, we only ever install equipment that can be fully compliant under the New Zealand Playground Safety Standards. So in terms of the soft fall, there would be the required amount of compliant soft fall that would alleviate any fall from height. That being said, kids are pretty confident these days, and we've got to let them
Big kids. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I've got quite a few notes here. I see that the report said that it didn't do structural integrity. I mean, it kind of does come through the report, but it says in their brief that they weren't looking at structural integrity. Why would they not?
So they don't look at structural integrity because they're not engineers. So they look at it from a compliant perspective around the New Zealand Safety Playground Standard to determine the level of compliance. If they have any concerns around structure, they will flag it, and that's when we will do a separate investigation into that. If they do flag it as a high priority or high risk, close the playground to mitigate any potential risk from that asset.
Okay, so places like Wahirere, there's indications that there should be stuff removed from there. Do we do any demand assessments, like how much it's being used and whether it's going to create a lot of community backlash if we do remove stuff, you know? It could be that it's not being used anyway.
So through the chair, no, we don't do any sort of needs analysis around the equipment. The audit is specific to playground safety compliance and relevant to the standards. That being said, though, whenever we do major works, we do consult Waikiri Kitty as a prime example, so that we can engage with the users in the community to determine, you know, the level of use or non-use, so to speak. So if we were to upgrade anything major at Wahirere, then staff, as part of the project, would consult with the community to determine the level of obviously equipment or non-equipment.
There was a comment that TRR had needs a higher standard to ensure ongoing safety. Is that immediate? Is that an immediate safety concern? In TRR, there's a quote that says, playground needs a higher standard to ensure ongoing safety.
That's what, yeah, so Te Araroa is one of our priority areas. Yeah.
But I mean, is it immediate, like, close it, because it's a safety concern now? I mean, could something happen between now and when we actually get around to doing something about it? Because that goes right back to 2016.
Right. So normally what we can do is carry out maintenance to alleviate those concerns. So if we aren't going to close it, we will maintain it to the relevant standard to ensure that it is safe for the users. On Te Araroa specifically, I'd need to go back to staff and just ask what their process is around Te Araroa specifically. But it's a network.
I mean, a lot of the problems are rural. I mean, when you're talking about things like badly rusted parts, comes up quite often. Can we have sort of an ongoing 6-monthly basis where someone actually goes in there and does rust treatment? Because you can do quite a lot if you get into rust treatment ahead of the game, instead of waiting and seeing when it's at a rust situation where it's not able to be done. So what are we doing at the front end instead of the back end?
So we can include that in our maintenance program. Recreational services are very thorough in their inspections and reporting. So they give us a park by park and asset by asset breakdown of the playgrounds and the relevant components within that playground. So it's a very simple addition to their maintenance schedule to include rust management where applicable.
Okay, Councillor Dowson.
Thank you. That leads perfectly into my question. We have a contractor who's doing an excellent job of reporting, as you say, and you've identified that we have an external agency come and do an annual audit on all of our parks. Now, the cost of that is probably quite significant in terms of the small budget that you have in this area. Is it something that we will continue with annually? Is that a legislative requirement, or is that something that we choose to do annually? Considering that our knowledge of plant and assets has increased dramatically over the last few years, and our contractor now, we have strong belief in their ability to do reporting.
So through the chair, it's not a legislative requirement, but it is a performance measure for the long-term plan. So we carry out the annual audit to ensure that, you know, all of our assets are either compliant or can be addressed to become compliant. That being said, there is quite a difference between a level 1 qualified inspector, which our current contractors are, versus a level 3 qualified inspector. So for the foreseeable future, we will continue to carry out annual audits so that we can have assurance going forward that the work that we are doing is you know, positive and brings our compliance further up.
Yeah, I'm happy to staff as they see best for the region. I just yeah, I hope that at some stage we recognise that that our knowledge has increased high enough that we can that we can maybe make that biannually and use that funding towards maintenance. But until that tipping point and staff being confident, then it's great. Continue the good work.
Why can't we work to one standard? Why have we got these 3 or 4 standards that we're working to?
Through the chair, it's to do with when the playgrounds were constructed. So typically older constructed playgrounds will be assessed against a different standard versus modules that were built and installed, within the last few years. So the reason there is 4 different standards is purely because there are different constructions and different materials. So they've got to have different New Zealand safety standards.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, just a comment. It was a great report and really pleasing to see our such a high compliance rate. Is this the highest compliance rate that we've ever had?
Yes.
Yep. So, you'd have to think that is really reflective of our new contractors as well, wouldn't you? Over the last year and a half since they've been employed. It's so pleasing just to see the outcomes that are already being generated by them, and with the relationship that council has with our contractors. So, no, it's really cool, and hopefully next year we'll have a higher compliance rate.
Through the chair, the other point to make is the renewals program as well. So yes, maintenance has been very, very effective in lifting the compliance, but what we've had typically is modules that are just so far gone that need complete replacement. 2 prime examples were the wooden module at the Adventure Playground and the wooden module at Heath Johnston. As soon as we replaced those 2 modules, completely transformed those spaces, but also lifted the compliance as well. So it's a combination of good maintenance and good reporting, as well as good renewals program.
All right, nothing further? Great report. Thanks, Garrett. Moved by councillor Burdett, second by councillor Finn.
Mr. Chairman, it hasn't been officially noted here. Councillor Pat and Garrett and his team, the result of Togamorrow Bay, the new playground, it's absolutely brilliant. You've only got to see the participation there. So well done to all concerned.
Excellent, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we had no notification of late business or anything, so I guess that's the meeting closed. Thanks for your attendance.
In regards to seeing the guys, if you want to meet the artists and stuff, this evening at the Dome, they're having an opportunity with talks from the artists and then a film about reef degradation.
About what? Reef degradation?
Yeah, Chasing Coral is a documentary.
Yeah.
2017.
So was there a requirement on these guys to actually have a demonstration of what they're painting? Will they have that there, do you think?
They'll be talking about that tonight.
Yeah,
about the artworks and what they're doing.
Yeah.
They'll also they do their own media outlets, so they do videos on all their works and they produce quite a lot of information on the back of it. It is it's designed as a festival, so they have activities going on around the painting.
This one on